a time tunnel. Face the incredible dangers of the past, or the unknown secrets of the future.
It's Woody Wing time, it's Woody Wing time. Hold it!
Nowadays, most of us remember Woodrow Wilson for maybe three reasons. First, he got the United States involved in the First World War. Second, he established the Federal Reserve System, and I'm going to do another video on that topic in the future. Third, he campaigned for the establishment of the League of Nations, which was the precursor to the United Nations. I should note that Wilson, a Democrat, had one of his political rivals thrown into prison. That probably sounds familiar because we may be seeing history repeat itself again this year. In addition to all of this, Woodrow Wilson was also a virulent racist. Since this is a Catholic channel, this video will explore whether he is bigoted toward Catholics. Before he became a politician, Wilson was a university professor, and he wrote a textbook that was in 5 volumes called A History of the American People. When he first ran for president, a lot of people decided to read his book, and they didn't like what he wrote. This article says, the New Jersey governor and former head of Princeton University was grilled for hours by dozens of speakers. He was called a bigot, an ignoramus, a know-nothing, a falsifier, and a vilifier. In speeches and resolutions, his attacks on immigrants from Italy and other European countries were branded as false and slanderous. A clause in the resolutions reminded the candidate that it was Christopher Columbus, an Italian, and not Woodrow Wilson, the bigot, who discovered America. The Catholic Advance wrote, A History of the American People by Woodrow Wilson included epithets and sentences which are not only untrue but really insulting. He called us Romanists, Papists, and he called our church the Romanist Church. He said Colonel Donegan was a soldier, an Irishman, and a Roman Catholic, and yet he proved himself a wise ruler. So Wilson said that Colonel Donegan was a wise ruler despite being an Irishman and a Catholic. The Catholic Bulletin wrote about this issue. They wrote that the presidential campaign of 1912 was putting Catholic voters into the limelight. The article congratulated the mainstream media for finally realizing the importance of Catholic voters. The few weeks before the article appeared, a special appeal had been addressed to Catholics on behalf of Wilson. Hundreds of thousands of copies of a pamphlet entitled, Is Woodrow Wilson a Bigot?, were distributed throughout the country. The article in the Catholic Bulletin noted that the pamphlet was a public document about Catholics, so it was reasonable for a Catholic newspaper to review it for the sake of truth and justice. The article noted that the author of the pamphlet said that it was being written for the purpose of enlightening Catholics who were being led astray. And to try to disprove that Woodrow Wilson was a bigot, the author listed 43 Catholics who Woodrow Wilson appointed while he was governor. However, the article noted that with the possible exception of maybe a half dozen people, all the appointments were low-level appointments. And those appointments comprised nothing more exalted than membership of a county tax board or on some equally unimportant state board of inspection or supervision. The pamphlet then went on to provide some testimonies from Catholics who talked about how great Wilson was. The article said that lest the readers of the pamphlet should fail to be impressed with the volume of favorable testimony, the writer of the pamphlet inserted a letter of commendation given by the International Catholic Truth Society and then referred the reader to Catholic friends of Mr. Wilson, who would be pleased to testify that he was not a bigot. The pamphlet closed with an extract that had been delivered by Governor Wilson years earlier that referred to the great democracy of the Catholic Church, whatever that means. So the pamphlet was sent on behalf of Woodrow Wilson by his friends. And the article says, if we take it at its face value as a true presentation of Mr. Wilson's attitude toward Catholics, it's hard to see why it should have been issued at that particular time, unless it was that his friends thought it was necessary to make a public apology for his attitude toward the church in the past. And then the article said that we should check to see whether there was any justification for believing that an apology was necessary. Scattered throughout Wilson's textbook of the history of American people were found such expressions as Romish priests, Romanists, Papists, Papist refuge, Romish church, and Popish. He likewise commended the so-called Glorious Revolution of 1688, when William of Orange succeeded to the throne of James II. In speaking of the Reformation in England, Woodrow Wilson declared that it had filled her, meaning England, not with intense religious feeling, but with an intense national feeling. It meant that England had thrown off all slavish political connection with Rome, and was henceforth national in her church as well as in her politics. It meant, too, that she was to have less church than formerly. The article said that it's unnecessary to comment on this statement or the use of the words which every intelligent and fair-minded non-Catholic avoids because of the offense that they know it would give to Catholics. Nonetheless, it seems that once Wilson became a politician, he stopped publicly berating Catholics because he knew he needed their votes. Whether Wilson changed his attitude toward Catholics over the years, or whether he was just being pragmatic and dishonest once he became a politician, we can't say with certainty. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again in about a week with another one, but in the meantime, please pray for the church.